There is a phrase people say when they don't want to feel pain, when they fear conflict, or when they don't understand the deeper movements of the soul. It is all good. It sounds peaceful, almost spiritual. But sometimes this phrase becomes a shield, a quiet denial of the divine responsibility that lives within every discomfort. In the ancient villages of Judea, there was a merchant named Reuben. He was known for his calmness. When storms destroyed crops, when thieves robbed the market, he would shrug and say, "It's all good." His friends admired his serenity, until the day his warehouse burned down and his workers went hungry. Still, he whispered, "It's all good." The rabbi of the town came to him and said, "Reuben, peace is holy, but numbness is not peace. When you refuse to feel what heaven is showing you, you close the door to change. You block the very prosperity you pray for." The rabbi's words pierced him. Reuben began to wonder, could his calmness be a disguise for fear? Could his spiritual detachment be preventing divine abundance? This question, ancient and eternal, lies at the heart of Jewish wisdom. The Torah teaches that blessing flows through awareness, not avoidance. When we face pain with honesty, we invite growth. When we say, "It's all good," without discernment, we confuse surrender with apathy. Over the next 7 reflections, we'll explore why avoiding discomfort can quietly block prosperity, how the Jewish path teaches gratitude without denial, and what true spiritual maturity looks like. Not the numb, "It's all good," but the living, "It will become good through my actions." Reuben's story did not end with the rabbi's visit. The next morning, he sat beside the ashes of his warehouse and whispered the words again, but softer this time, almost uncertain. "It's all good." The phrase felt heavy in his mouth. For years, it had been his armor. Whenever life brought disappointment, he used those 3 words like a charm to silence his heart. But silence, the sages say, can be both healing and dangerous. It depends on what it hides. Jewish wisdom teaches that peace, shalom, is not the absence of conflict, but the harmony born from tension. The Hebrew root of shalom comes from shalem, wholeness. And wholeness, by definition, includes both light and shadow. When a man says, "It's all good," while refusing to see what is broken, he is not embracing wholeness. He is hiding from it. There is a teaching in the Talmud: whoever turns his eyes away from pain will not see joy when it comes. This doesn't mean that one must dwell in suffering, but that growth demands awareness. Prosperity, in the Jewish sense, is not merely wealth or success. It is expansion of soul, of compassion, of truth. And truth cannot be expanded by denial. Reuben had built his business with discipline. Yet behind his discipline was fear, fear of disappointment, fear of imperfection. "It's all good" became his defense against vulnerability. But the Holy One does not send comfort to those who worship control. The divine sends storms to awaken life. When the rabbi found Reuben again, he said, "You think peace is never being shaken, but peace is knowing how to be shaken and not collapse." The rabbi's eyes softened. "If you refuse to feel pain, you refuse to be transformed by it. Then your peace becomes a prison." Those words carried a quiet thunder. Reuben began to remember the days before his business, when he had struggled to feed his family. Back then, every loaf of bread was a miracle, every coin a blessing. He used to thank God with tears. Over time, comfort replaced gratitude, and gratitude was replaced by indifference. His peace was not faith, it was fatigue. We often use spirituality to hide from truth. We say, "It is all good," to avoid confronting the hard questions. Why did I lose my patience? Why did I neglect my prayer? Why did I ignore the poor man who asked for help? The phrase becomes a numbing agent, gentle, polite, and deadly to the soul. In the Jewish path, awareness is sacred. Even GD, as described in the Torah, begins creation not with perfection, but with tohu vavohu, chaos and void. From that chaos comes light. To say, "It is all good," while refusing to see chaos, is to reject the very pattern of creation. You block your own genesis. Reuben finally stood up from the ashes. He walked through the ruins of his workroom and found a single oil lamp that had survived the fire. He lit it in his small house that night. His wife asked him, "Why light a lamp for a place that no longer exists?" He answered, because I need to remember that something within me still burns." In that moment, the rabbi's words returned. Wholeness is born from tension. Reuven realized that his so-called peace had been a wall, thick, polished, silent. Now, for the first time, he could feel the air coming through its cracks. And that air carried both pain and freedom. The next day, he went to the market, not to sell, but to apologize to his workers. "I called it all good," he told them, "but it was not. You lost your livelihood, and I told you to accept it. That was not holiness, that was blindness." They listened quietly. Some forgave him, others turned away, but something in Reuven's heart shifted. For the first time in years, he could feel the pulse of real life, imperfect, unpredictable, alive. In that humility, a seed of prosperity began to grow. Because prosperity, in truth, is not what you hold, but what you are becoming. It is the soul's capacity to receive new wisdom, new strength, new possibility. And these things cannot live behind the wall of, "It's all good." When we pretend that everything is fine, we close the gates of learning. We resist correction. We stop praying with sincerity. The universe becomes static, and a static life cannot attract blessing. The Torah warns, "You shall not harden your heart." A hardened heart cannot hold abundance. It can only echo its emptiness. That night, Reuven prayed differently. He did not say, "It's all good." He said, "God of truth, help me see what is not good yet, and help me make it good." That prayer opened a door that had been closed for years. For the first time, he felt that his losses were not punishments, but invitations, and in that awareness, peace returned. Not the peace of avoidance, but the peace of alignment. Real peace begins where illusions end. Saying, "It is all good," too early is like closing the book before reading the middle chapters. The pain we refuse to see becomes the wisdom we never gain. The prosperity we seek waits patiently behind that lesson, whispering, "Feel first, heal later, grow always." In every generation there are people who confuse calmness with holiness. They believe that avoiding tension is a sign of spiritual maturity, that smiling through disappointment and muttering, "It is all good," is a mark of enlightenment. But the sages teach something far deeper. Comfort can be as dangerous to the soul as suffering. The enemy of growth is not pain, it is numbness. Reuven learned this slowly. After his apology to his workers, he began helping them rebuild. Each day he felt both the sting of humility and the warmth of purpose, but sometimes he still caught himself whispering the old phrase when fatigue crept in. "It's all good," he would sigh. The rabbi overheard him once and said gently, "You are trying to escape through words that once protected you. Faith is not escape. Faith is the courage to remain present in discomfort." The rabbi's words echo the teaching of the Baal Shem Tov, who said that a broken heart is not a flaw to hide, but a vessel for light. A closed heart can hold no miracle, but a cracked one can reflect heaven. The modern world, however, teaches the opposite. To cover pain with affirmations, to hide doubt under a smile, to turn suffering into slogans. This is not spirituality, it is spiritual bypassing, using faith as a mask to avoid the sacred work of feeling. There's a parable about a man who fell into a pit. People passed by and said, "Don't worry, it's all good, everything happens for a reason." But the man in the pit cried out, "If it's all good, why am I still down here?" Finally, an old woman approached. She climbed into the pit beside him and said, "I don't know why you're here, but I'll stay until you find the reason." That is the essence of Jewish compassion, not erasing pain, but accompanying it until meaning appears. Reuven's journey reflected this lesson. One day, while repairing the walls of a new warehouse, he cut his hand deeply. His first instinct was to laugh it off. "It's all good." But then he stopped. He realized that this was his pattern, minimizing pain to protect pride. He wrapped his hand, sat down, and prayed not for the wound to vanish, but for the humility to learn from it. He felt something open in his chest, a quiet space where fear once lived. When we say, "It's all good" too quickly, we silence that space. We tell the soul, "Your feelings are inconvenient." Over time, the soul learns to stop speaking. We lose our inner dialogue with the divine. The Talmud tells of King David, who cried out in Psalms, My tears have been my food day and night. He was not ashamed of his sorrow, he made it part of his prayer. That's why his songs endure, because they are honest. Prosperity, in Jewish thought, flows through honesty. It is not measured by wealth, but by vitality, by the presence of divine energy within daily life. When we deny pain, we block that flow. We pretend we are whole, but wholeness cannot be faked. The Kabbalists say that God's light must pass through kelim, vessels, and if the vessel is closed, the light cannot enter. Denial closes the vessel. Awareness opens it. In one of their conversations, the rabbi told Reuven, "When you say it's all good, ask yourself, who are you trying to convince, God or yourself?" The question lingered in his heart for days. He realized that most of his peace had been performance. He wanted people to see him as unshakable. But real faith is not the absence of trembling. It's choosing trust while you tremble. The Jewish path does not promise ease. The wilderness journey after Egypt was long and filled with complaint, hunger, doubt. Yet every hardship carried a revelation. The manna did not fall in Egypt's comfort. It appeared in the desert's emptiness. Likewise, our inner manna, wisdom, resilience, creativity, arrives only when we allow space for lack. Saying, "It is all good," prematurely keeps us spiritually full of air but empty of substance. Reuven began to see that his losses were not random. They were messages. Each challenge was a verse in his personal Torah, written through experience. The fire that destroyed his warehouse was painful, but it burned away his illusion of control. His injury humbled him, teaching that strength is not domination, but sensitivity. Slowly, his faith became less about pretending peace and more about participating in creation, shaping goodness out of raw material, not declaring it prematurely. He also noticed something subtle. As he faced reality with more honesty, new opportunities emerged. A neighbor offered to partner with him in a new trade. A former worker returned with an idea for improving storage safety. These were not coincidences. They were reflections of his renewed alignment. When truth re-enters the heart, prosperity follows like a shadow following light. There is a phrase in Hebrew, emet ve'emunah, truth and faith. They are never meant to be separated. Faith without truth is illusion. Truth without faith is despair. The one who says it is all good, without acknowledging pain, is practicing faith without truth. The one who only sees pain and no possibility practices truth without faith. Prosperity arises when the two embrace. So, when the modern soul repeats it's all good, let it be with awareness. Let it mean, even if it's not good yet, I trust that with God's help, it can become good. That is faith. That is partnership with the divine. As Reuven began to live this way, people noticed a different glow about him. Not the calm of detachment, but the peace of someone fully alive, equally open to joy and challenge. And from that openness, blessings began to flow naturally, like water finding its path downhill. After weeks of rebuilding, Reuven began to rise before dawn again, as he used to in the early days of his trade. The marketplace was still quiet at that hour. He would stand at the edge of the empty street, feel the chill of the morning, and whisper the ancient blessing, Modeh ani lefanecha. I thank you for returning my soul. But this time, gratitude did not erase his wounds. It accompanied them. He was learning that true thanksgiving is not pretending that everything is perfect. It is recognizing that even imperfection carries divine purpose. In Jewish tradition, gratitude and awareness are two halves of the same coin. The prayer for bread, hamotzi lechem min haaretz, thanks God not for finished loaves, but for bringing forth bread from the earth. It honors process, not perfection. The dough must be mixed, kneaded, and baked, all stages that involve friction and heat. Gratitude, therefore, is not denial of discomfort. It is acknowledgement that discomfort participates in creation. When Reuven's new warehouse finally opened, it was smaller than before, but stronger. The walls were thick, the design simpler. People expected him to boast about his resilience, but he said quietly, I didn't rebuild my business, I rebuilt my heart. He had stopped saying, it's all good, and started saying, this too can become good. That small change in language carried enormous power. It transformed passivity into partnership with the divine. The rabbi once told him, "The first sin of the soul is indifference. God can forgive anger, fear, or doubt, but not indifference, because indifference means you have stopped believing your actions matter." When we dismiss life's challenges with, "It's all good," we surrender the power of choice. We stop participating in tikkun olam, the repair of the world. Prosperity dries up not because heaven withholds it, but because we stop creating vessels to hold it. Reuven realized that awareness is a discipline, not an emotion. It requires daily practice, pausing before judgment, noticing what stirs inside, naming what is real. The sages call this hitbone nut, deep contemplation. It is how a person transforms chaos into clarity. When he practiced it, he began to notice subtle blessings. A stranger's kindness, a new supplier arriving at the perfect time, a gentle peace during prayer. Awareness widened the gate through which prosperity could flow. Many people misunderstand gratitude. They use it as anesthesia. Be grateful and stop complaining, they tell themselves, as if gratitude were a way to silence the soul. But gratitude in Torah is noisy. It sings, it wrestles, it cries out Baruch Hashem in the middle of the storm. It doesn't say, "It's all good." It says, "Even now God is here." That difference changes everything. There is a line in Pirkei Avot, "Who is rich? He who rejoices in his portion." This does not mean accepting injustice or mediocrity. It means recognizing that rejoicing opens perception. When you see your portion clearly, the pain, the joy, the waiting, you stop comparing, and energy returns to creation. Reuven discovered that when he faced reality with gratitude, creative ideas surfaced effortlessly. His new business began thriving beyond expectation, not because of luck, but because his spirit was unclogged. One evening, the rabbi visited again. They walked among shelves of freshly packed goods. "Your face has changed," the rabbi said. Reuven smiled. "I think I've stopped fighting the lessons." The rabbi nodded. That is wisdom, not running from correction but welcoming it. The world was built on the word, Yehi, let there be. Every day you face something not yet good and say, let it become good. That's creation continuing through you. Awareness also protects against arrogance. When success returned, Reuven made sure to give the first profits to charity. He remembered his earlier pride and the blindness it brought. Prosperity is safest in the hands of those who remember its source. The Torah commands generosity precisely when harvests are full, reminding us that abundance without humility turns blessing into burden. Reuven gave quietly, not out of guilt, but gratitude, a sign that his prosperity was flowing, not stagnating. In moments of fatigue, he still felt the old impulse to dismiss discomfort. Yet now he paused and asked himself, what is this feeling teaching me? Sometimes the answer was patience. Sometimes it was rest. Either way, awareness turned every emotion into dialogue. That dialogue kept his life dynamic, connected, alive. Jewish prosperity is not static wealth. It is a living relationship with divine flow. When a person numbs pain, the channel narrows. When he awakens awareness and gratitude together, the channel widens. The Talmud says that every blade of grass has an angel that whispers, grow. Awareness is hearing that whisper. Gratitude is answering, Amen. Reuven's transformation began inspiring others. Merchants came to ask how he rebuilt so quickly. He told them, I stopped saying about ice all good and started listening to what wasn't tea. His words carried weight because they were born of struggle, not theory. People saw in him a new kind of peace, not calm detachment, but active harmony. True gratitude does not protect you from pain. It prepares you for purpose. The moment you stop running from reality, prosperity finds its route back to you. This is why the sages insist on blessing God for both joy and sorrow, because both are threads of the same tapestry. Deny one, and the pattern disappears. So if you ever catch yourself saying, it's all good, pause. Ask, is this gratitude or avoidance? If it is avoidance, breathe, feel, pray, and choose awareness. Through that simple discipline, the soul reopens to abundance. If you're enjoying this reflection, subscribe to the channel and leave your comment. There is a saying among the sages: the wound is the place where the light enters. Reuven had heard it once, but he only began to understand it when he faced the parts of himself he used to avoid. After the fire and the rebuilding, after the tears and prayers, he thought he had already faced everything. But the real confrontation was still waiting. Not with loss, but with self-deception. One morning, while sorting new goods, he found a piece of charred wood from the old warehouse. He picked it up and felt an ache that surprised him. He had told everyone, "It's all good now, the past is behind me." But the blackened wood told another story. It reminded him of the anger he never voiced, the questions he buried under his new calm. In that moment he realized, avoiding pain had not healed it, it had only buried it alive. The Torah does not teach escape, it teaches confrontation through faith. When Jacob wrestled with the angel, he did not run or surrender. He grappled all night until the blessing emerged from the struggle. Jewish prosperity follows the same pattern. Blessing is not given, it is drawn out through confrontation. The moment you stop fighting truth, it blesses you. Reuven took the burnt wood to the rabbi and said, "Why does this still hurt me? I thought I'd made peace with what happened." The rabbi smiled gently. "Peace is not the end of feeling, it's the full embrace of it. God does not ask you to stop hurting, he asks you to bring the hurt into holiness. That's how pain turns into wisdom." For days after that, Reuven prayed differently. He stopped asking for comfort and started asking for courage. Courage to see what he still feared, courage to forgive what remained bitter. Slowly, he began to notice how often people around him used the same words he once did. "It is all good." He could see, in their tone, the same weariness he had carried. Some said it to avoid guilt, others to avoid hope. Both forms were prisons. The rabbi once told a teaching from Kohelet, Ecclesiastes, "There is a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to tear and a time to mend." When we say it's all good all the time, we erase sacred timing. We refuse the weeping, the tearing, the mending. But every season has divine purpose. The seed cannot become a tree without first breaking open. Reuven finally understood that prosperity is not an event. It is a rhythm, contraction, expansion, silence, song. He began sharing this insight with the apprentices in his warehouse. "Don't rush to fix everything," he would tell them. "And some lessons need to hurt before they heal." One of the younger men, puzzled, asked, "Then when do we say it's good?" Reuven answered, "When we can see the good inside the pain, not instead of it." Courage is the bridge between awareness and transformation. Without courage, awareness becomes paralysis. We see truth but fear to act. Reuven's courage was tested when an old partner, the one who had once betrayed him in business, returned seeking work. The easy path would have been dismissal, a polite, "It's all good, I've moved on." But that would have been avoidance disguised as peace. Instead, Reuven looked the man in the eyes and said, "What happened between us was not good, but maybe it can become good now." They talked long into the night. There were tears, anger, confessions. In the end, forgiveness came, not as a single act, but as a slow unfolding. Reuven felt lighter afterward, as if a gate inside him had opened. That gate, invisible but powerful, allowed prosperity to flow again. His business flourished anew, but more importantly, his relationships deepened, the rabbi explained. When you forgive truthfully, you imitate God's creation. God confronts darkness by saying, "Let there be light." He doesn't erase the darkness, he transforms it. That is why those who face pain honestly become co-creators with the divine. Facing pain does not mean drowning in it. It means giving it language, allowing it to speak its wisdom. Reuven began keeping a small notebook, writing every time he felt discomfort. Instead of labeling his feelings as good or bad, he wrote, "What is this trying to teach me?" In doing so, he turned each moment of pain into dialogue, and dialogue is the essence of prayer. Jewish wisdom does not promise a painless life. It promises meaning within pain, purpose within trial. The rabbis teach that even destruction, the burning of the temple, became the seed of renewal, because from the ashes of loss arose the synagogue, the house of study, the heart of Jewish survival. Reuven saw his own warehouse fire through that lens. It had forced him to build something stronger than walls, character. Courage, therefore, is not the absence of fear. It is moving toward truth despite fear. When you meet discomfort with courage, you transform fate into destiny. You move from saying, "It's all good," to proclaiming, "This will become good through my faith and effort." That shift is where prosperity begins, not in the wallet, but in the will. As the year passed, Reuven noticed something miraculous. He no longer feared losing what he built, because his identity was no longer tied to what he owned. Prosperity had ceased to be a fragile possession. It had become an inner state. That is the paradox of courage. The more you face what you fear, the less fear controls your fortune. At the next Sabbath meal, surrounded by family and friends, Reuven lifted his cup and said, "To truth, even when it hurts, because only truth can carry blessing." Those at the table nodded, feeling the weight of his words. The rabbi smiled quietly, knowing that the man before him had finally become his own teacher. Pain will always visit. But to those who face it with open eyes and steady faith, it becomes the messenger of abundance. The courage to confront is the secret path through which heaven restores what was lost. Not in the same form, but in a higher one. As Reuven's warehouse thrived, he began to understand that prosperity was no longer something he earned. It was something he joined. In Jewish thought, abundance is not a transaction between man and heaven. It is a partnership. The divine provides the potential, and the human being shapes it through effort. When either side withdraws, the blessing loses its form. Reuven had once believed that saying, "It's all good," was a form of faith, a way of surrendering to divine will. But now he saw how incomplete that surrender had been. True faith is not passive acceptance, it is active cooperation. The Torah teaches, 6 days you shall labor, and on the 7th you shall rest. Labor comes first. Rest is not laziness, but trust that your labor has meaning. When we hide behind "it's all good," we abandon that sacred balance. We rest without having worked. We surrender before we've participated. The rabbi explained it this way. Faith without effort is arrogance disguised as piety. It tells heaven, "I will not act, you do it all." But God created the world in partnership with human hands. He gives rain, but you must sow the seed. This truth reshaped Reuven's days. He no longer waited for fortune, he worked with consciousness. Every action became an offering. When he opened the shutters in the morning, he whispered, "Thank you for this chance to create again." When he negotiated with suppliers, he reminded himself that business is not war, but dialogue, an opportunity to practice honesty and fairness. That awareness turned daily work into worship. One evening, he sat with his oldest son, Eliav, who had watched his father's transformation with quiet admiration. "Father," the boy asked, "how did you rebuild so quickly after losing everything?" Reuven smiled and said, "I stopped asking God to make things easy. I asked him to make me strong." That shift, from expecting rescue to embodying responsibility, was the essence of his new prosperity. The Jewish sages call this partnership hishtadlut, the human effort that invites divine assistance. It's not about control or self-reliance. It's about showing heaven that you are ready to hold the blessing you seek. When a person says, "It's all good," and does nothing, the vessel remains empty. When he acts with faith, he signals readiness. Then the flow begins. Reuven often shared with his apprentices, "If you pray for rain, prepare your field. If you pray for wisdom, make time to study." God blesses preparation, not passivity. The Torah itself begins with Bereshit bara Elohim. In the beginning, God created. Creation is an act, not a thought. To mirror the divine, we must become creators in our own sphere. But effort alone is not enough. Many people work tirelessly and still feel unfulfilled. That is because effort without faith becomes anxiety. It traps the soul in endless striving. The balance lies in doing all you can and then releasing the outcome to heaven. Reuven practiced this by ending each day with prayer. "I have done what I could. Now I rest in your care." That nightly surrender kept his heart light and his sleep peaceful. There came a week when business slowed again. Orders fell, and old fears tried to creep back. The voice of despair whispered, "You will lose it all again." But Reuven had learned not to silence fear with false comfort. He spoke to it instead. Perhaps things are not good now, but they can become good through wisdom. He reviewed his finances, adjusted his plans, reached out to partners, all while maintaining gratitude. Within weeks, new opportunities appeared. This experience reminded him of the Israelites collecting manna in the desert. They were told to gather only what they needed for each day, trusting that new manna would come tomorrow. Those who hoarded lost their supply. The lesson was clear. Prosperity flows when we combine labor and trust, not when we replace one with the other. The rabbi once summarized it beautifully. When you work without faith, you exhaust yourself. When you believe without work, you deceive yourself. When you join the two, you redeem yourself. Reuven carried those words like a mantra. They became the backbone of his leadership, his parenting, his prayers. Through this partnership, his business grew beyond its previous limits. Yet more importantly, his inner life expanded. He began mentoring younger merchants, teaching them not how to make money, but how to cultivate blessing. "Your wealth," he told them, "is not what you store in your vaults, but what you awaken in others. Prosperity that stops with you dies with you. Prosperity that passes through you multiplies." Each morning he felt gratitude rise like dawn, not a hollow, "it's all good," but a living dialogue. It can become good if I act with faith. That small shift in language continued to renew his strength. For the first time, Reuven understood what it meant to serve prosperity rather than chase it. Jewish wisdom insists that blessing is never random. It arrives where responsibility lives. When you align your actions with divine purpose, when your work is honest, your heart humble, and your faith active, abundance naturally finds its way to your door. You don't have to chase it, you simply have to be able to hold it. And so, Reuven's story teaches a timeless truth. Prosperity is not a prize given to the lucky. It is the natural result of harmony between heaven and hands, a rhythm that begins each morning when you wake and say, "Modeh Ani," and continues through every task, every challenge, every act of courage that says, "I am here to co-create." In that balance, "it's all good" finally becomes true, not as denial, but as realization. Among all the gifts of creation, the most divine is language. Words are not mere sounds. In Jewish thought, they are instruments of creation. The world itself was spoken into being, and God said, "Let there be light." Through speech, potential became form. This means that when a person says, "It's all good," those words carry real power. They can either open or close the flow of blessing, depending on the truth behind them. Reuven discovered this truth slowly. For years, he had repeated that phrase as a shield. Each time he said, "It's all good," he silenced something within, the desire to question, to grow, to seek meaning. But now, with new understanding, he began to notice how his words shaped his world. When he spoke with gratitude and awareness, things seemed to move with grace. When he fell back into careless speech, confusion returned. The rabbi once told him, "Speech is like rain. When it falls on fertile ground, it brings life. When it falls on stone, it washes away." He explained that every word leaves a spiritual echo. If a person speaks without consciousness, he scatters energy. But if he speaks with intention, kavana, his words align heaven and earth. Reuven started paying attention to his daily language. Instead of saying, "Business is bad," he would say, "Business is teaching me patience." Instead of saying, "I failed," he said, "I'm still learning." These small shifts transformed despair into direction. The people around him noticed. His apprentices began echoing his tone, and soon the warehouse became a place of quiet optimism. Not shallow positivity, but faith in process. The sages of the Talmud warn that lashon hara, the evil tongue, destroys three people: the one who speaks, the one who hears, and the one who is spoken about. But they also teach that good words heal three as well. When Reuven used to say, "It's all good," thinking it harmless, he was in fact spreading a subtle kind of lashon hara, not against others, but against reality itself. He was speaking lies about what was broken, pretending wholeness where repair was still needed. In Hebrew, the word for word, davar, is the same as the word for thing. To speak is to create a thing. Every careless, it-s all good becomes a thing, an object that floats between heaven and earth, influencing energy, shaping outcomes. This is why Jewish prayer is built around precise language. Every blessing begins with Baruch atah Adonai. Blessed are you, Lord, aligning speech with reverence before continuing with specifics. Words open gates, but only if they are honest. Reuven began a practice. Before speaking, he asked himself, is this word true? Is it necessary? Does it build or destroy? This discipline slowed his speech, made his conversations deeper, and gradually transformed his relationships. His workers trusted him more, his children listened more attentively, and even the rhythm of his business meetings became calmer. Prosperity followed this quiet precision. There was one conversation, however, that tested him deeply. A trader accused Reuven of dishonesty in a deal. The old Reuven would have smiled and said, "It's all good," avoiding confrontation. But now he chose a different path. "No," he said gently, "it isn't good. Let's speak truth so it can become good." They sat together for hours, clarifying misunderstandings until peace returned. Afterward, the trader confessed, "Your words disarmed me. No one ever says it like that. They either fight or flee." Reuven smiled. Words can heal if you let them. This episode revealed something profound. The difference between reaction and response. Reaction is automatic. It's all good. Response is conscious. It can become good. One closes the book, the other writes a new chapter. The rabbis say, life and death are in the power of the tongue. The prosperity of a man, a family, or even a nation often hinges on how its people speak about challenge. When language becomes intentional, reality becomes flexible. The moment you declare something with awareness, you begin shaping it. This is why blessings in Jewish life accompany even the smallest acts: eating bread, seeing a rainbow, hearing thunder. Each blessing is a verbal acknowledgement that connects the physical world to the spiritual. Silence can be sacred, but careless speech can be fatal to destiny. Reuven sometimes wondered how many years of growth he had delayed by using words lazily. The rabbi comforted him, saying, "Do not mourn what's past. Every word you speak now with truth redeems the words you wasted. The tongue is like a flame. Even a small spark of honesty can relight the world." He took this literally. He began teaching his apprentices a simple rule: never say, "It is all good," unless you mean it in the deepest sense, not as avoidance, but as prophecy. Say it only when you've seen the seed of goodness inside the struggle. Otherwise, choose silence or say, "It can become good." That phrase became a kind of code among them, a reminder that faith and reality are partners, not enemies. Over time, his warehouse became known not only for its fair trade, but for the atmosphere of calm it carried. People said, "Something in that place feels blessed." The secret was simple. Every word spoken there carried weight. Every deal began with honesty. Every disagreement ended with dignity. Language had become the architecture of prosperity. In the end, Reuven realized that words are like currency. When you spend them wisely, they multiply value. When you waste them, they drain your fortune. And just as counterfeit coins corrupt markets, counterfeit phrases, like "it-s all good" said without truth, corrupt the soul, s economy. So he made a final vow: "Let my words be smaller, but truer." That vow became his daily prayer, his way of aligning his voice with the voice that created all things. For in the Jewish heart, prosperity begins not in the hand or the mind, but in the mouth, in the courage to speak what is real, so that what is real can become good. The day Reuven finally stopped saying, "It's all good," came quietly. There was no dramatic event, no disaster or revelation, only an ordinary morning when he looked around his thriving warehouse and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Stillness that was alive, not numb. He realized that peace had returned, but it was different from the peace he once faked. It wasn't the stillness of denial, it was the harmony that comes after truth is faced and integrated. He stood at the doorway and whispered, "It has become good." That subtle shift of tense carried years of learning. The journey from it-s all good to it will become good. And finally, to it has become good, mirrors the spiritual path of every soul that grows through awareness. The first phrase denies reality. The second partners with it. The third celebrates its transformation. That morning, he visited the rabbi to share what he felt. "I think I finally understand," Reuven said. "It wasn't peace I was chasing. It was avoidance. And now that I've stopped running from pain, it's as if blessing has been running toward me." The rabbi smiled. "That is the paradox of faith. When you stop pretending all is well, heaven begins to make it well." The rabbi continued, "You see, my son, saying, 'It's all good,' when it is not, is like putting a lid on a boiling pot. The pressure builds until something breaks. But saying it will become good is like stirring the pot. You allow movement, release, transformation. That stirring is the work of the soul." Reuven nodded. He remembered every stage: the fire, the shame, the rebuilding, the forgiveness, the discipline of words. Each one had been painful, but together they formed a kind of melody. He realized that every setback had been an invitation to practice what the rabbis call emunah, faith that walks, not faith that floats above life, but faith that moves through it with steady feet. Over time, he became known not just as a successful merchant, but as a counselor to others. People came to him seeking advice not about money, but about meaning. One young man told him, "I try to stay positive, but things keep falling apart." Reuven answered, "Then stop trying to stay positive. Try to stay honest. God can build on honesty. He cannot build on denial." The young man blinked in surprise, then smiled slowly, as if hearing truth for the first time. Reuven often used the metaphor of the olive. "The olive must be crushed to produce oil," he would say. "If you call the crushing good, you lie. If you call it bad, you miss the point. But if you say it will become good, you invite the oil to reveal itself." That lesson spread through the town like quiet fire. Merchants, families, and even children began to echo the phrase, "It will become good." It became a kind of communal prayer, a declaration of living faith. One evening, as the sun set over the hills, Reuven sat by the window with his wife. She looked at him and said, "You've changed." He laughed softly. "No," he said, "I've just stopped pretending." She smiled, resting her hand on his. "Then maybe that's what faith really is. The courage to stop pretending." The words lingered between them, tender and true. In that golden silence, Reuven felt the deepest prosperity of all. Not wealth, not admiration, but alignment. His soul no longer resisted the rhythm of life. He could welcome both joy and sorrow as teachers. The phrase, "It's all good," had once been a lid over his heart. Now, "It will become good," had become its doorway. The rabbi's final teaching to him came later that year. "Reuven," he said, "you have learned that saying, 'It's all good,' too early blocks prosperity because it blocks truth. But now remember this. When you say, 'It will become good,' you also accept your role in making it so. You are no longer a victim of fate. You are a partner of creation. That is the highest form of blessing." Those words stayed with him forever. The shift from avoidance to awareness, from denial to participation, is the transformation that unlocks every kind of prosperity. Because prosperity is not a condition of wealth, but of movement. Stagnant souls lose abundance, moving souls attract it. And nothing moves the soul faster than truth, faced with courage and spoken with love. Reuven's story is the story of every person who learns to replace numbness with honesty. We say it's all good to keep life simple, but simplicity without depth is emptiness. The Jewish path calls us not to erase pain, but to sanctify it, to bring light into it, to wrestle meaning from it. In doing so, we fulfill the purpose for which we were created, to transform darkness into light, not through denial, but through devotion. So when the next challenge arrives, as it always does, do not silence your heart with, "It is all good." Look at it, name it, bless it with the words, "It will become good." For that phrase carries the energy of Genesis, the echo of, "Let there be light." And when light finally comes, when peace no longer hides pain but includes it, then you will know what prosperity truly means. It is not ease, it is harmony. It is the moment when your soul and God move in rhythm, creating goodness together. If this message made sense to you, subscribe to the channel, leave your comment, and share your opinion. What part of Reuven's journey spoke to you most deeply?